Now, I did promise you for this module a couple of really cool things that we can do once we start digging a little further into the PowerShell. And it's here where we can start to do some stuff that I personally is just really exciting. And it's in part because I actually discovered a new PowerShell command that I was unaware of that solves a host of what were otherwise exceptionally difficult problems to figure out way back in the day. But before we get to that command, I want to show you just a couple of the ways in which we can go about managing inactive and disabled accounts here in Active Directory. I'll start with the old commandlets that we had, and then we'll move into this new tool that I think you should be aware of just because it's cool. The first of which is, let's talk about how I can get information about users that may be inactive or disabled. If you think about users and what users might be inactive, you have to think about, okay, how can we define a user or a set of users that we consider to be inactive in the domain? Well, one way in which we've done for years is by taking a look at the last logon date and last logon time for when that user would attach to the domain or request the use of resources or even just log on to their machine. Because every logon has to happen through a domain controller, it is that last logon date attribute associated with a user account that we can definitively use for determining when they attempted to log on to our domain. Now, in times gone past, the only way to get this was through this commandlet get AD-user and a fairly complex series of additional parameters that we have to add. Let's say that we want to use get AD-user and then filter it on all the items here so that we can take a look at the property, which is the last logon date. Last logon date. What we're asking here is give us all the users and give us their last logon date. And then once we have that, let's filter the results into a nice table that we can use to review the name and indeed the last logon date of that particular user. If I get that, I take a look at, well, here's my administrator user account, and then here's the accounts that I created, the Jason Helmick, the Greg Shields, and the Don Jones account. In a production world, I would have a longer list of different accounts, obviously, and obviously I would also have last logon dates for those users as well. But because we just created these accounts, we're not seeing this additional information in here. I could further look at some additional properties as well. There's another property called password last set that can be useful. This password last set gives me an idea of when the user's password was last set. So password last set, and then let me grab that then into the table, password last set, will provide me the last logon date and then when that password was last set for the account. Now, the password last set information gives me a little bit more here for my G Shields, my Jason Helmick, and my Don Jones account because it tells me when the password was set, which was earlier this morning. The combination of this information with the appropriate formatting and then ordering by however many days will help you understand, well, has this user even attempted to log into the domain for 30 or 60 or 90 days? With that information, I can go through using the remove commands to get rid of those user accounts out of Active Directory on a more regularly scheduled basis. Now, this helps me for situations when I've got inactive accounts, but what I may also be interested in are disabled accounts, those that have been specifically disabled in Active Directory. If I flip back here to my Active Directory users and computers and take a look at one of the accounts that's available, it is possible for me to go down here and set that an account indeed is disabled here in AD. But the problem is having to click through every single user account, then to the account tab, and then to scroll down to account options is kind of a pain in the neck. So I can use PowerShell here in order to speed things up just a little more. And one of the first tools I can use to do that is also the get AD-user command. But in this case, I'm going to choose a filter on my domain, which in this case, instead of using a wildcard, I want to actually create a filter that will define which users may be disabled and which ones aren't. If I do the curly brackets here, I could do the filter on enabled not equal to true. So running this will give me the list of users where the account is not enabled. As you can see here, I have, looks like the Don Jones account, and obviously my template user account, as well as the other sort of basic out-of-the-box accounts that are also disabled by default. Now that's the old school approach to figuring out this information. And by old school, I mean an operating system ago or two. But in recent versions of the OS, Microsoft has included a new commandlet here that I find to be particularly exciting. That command is search AD account. So search AD account, which if I run the help on, I think I've spelled that correctly. Yes, it will give me the list of possible ways in which I can use this commandlet for finding information about accounts that exist in Active Directory. So let's take a look here at the possibilities. Those are the abilities to search on whether the account is disabled, whether it's expired, whether it's about to expire or expiring, whether the account is inactive, whether it's locked out, whether the password is configured to never expire. So as you can see, this search AD account function has some really cool ways in which I can see, without needing to construct a variety of different filters and whatnot, how I can then identify which user accounts are in these various states. So let's do search AD account, and then let's start with disabled accounts. So account disabled. There is my list of users and computers where their accounts are currently disabled. But let's actually go a step further and remove out the computers so I just get the users only for that list. And I'll go one step further still and then format the list so I just get the names of the users that are currently disabled. So Search AD Account really provides some real nice functionality here for helping me quickly identify the accounts that need to be disabled. The good part is, and you'll learn more about this as you get more familiar with PowerShell, is that the objects that are produced by Search AD Account could be piped into, for example, the remove AD user command, so that I could just search for the accounts that are disabled and then remove them if need be. I can do another one here. Let's do search AD account and then account inactive. So not disabled or expiring, but inactive. This gives me the ability, with the additional parameter of time span, a set of days or hours that I want to look for potentially inactive accounts. So let's say 30 days, for example. So 30 days, :00:00. So these are the accounts that have been inactive for 30 days or more. That should actually be these accounts. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple of additional accounts in here, like my account and the Jason Helmick account and the Don Jones account, that are considered inactive because we haven't actually logged in with these accounts yet. They are technically inactive because they don't have any last logon date information populated in with their user record. I've got other functionality I can use, like search AD account and then password expired. Which accounts exist in this domain where their passwords have expired? Also, which accounts have been configured where the password never expires? So a couple of accounts there that have been set up so the password never expires. And my personal favorite, which is search AD account and then locked out. Sometimes you end up with users that have punched in their password incorrectly too many times and they end up locking themselves out. Well, identifying the long list of users, none of which exist in this domain, that have been locked out of their account is great for identifying why that person cannot connect up with the resources that they need. The process by which Windows sets an account to be locked out can sometimes have some really weird effects on how users are connecting up to resources. It's not always cut and dried, as in determining why a user cannot log on. And so being able to identify whether or not the account is locked out is handy when the user calls in to try to figure out why they're not able to connect to resources for one reason or another.